All right. So welcome to our GDF Shop Talk. Today we've got Chris Bunham, CEO of Reins and one of our amazing vendor partners. And we also have Paul Weiss of Serv Pro and a beloved alumni GDF member. I thank you both for being here today. And this discussion is for you if you're thinking about growth, building bench strength of leaders, or even eventual exit. Please tune in and listen. Chris brings a framework and tools. Paul brings the firsthand experience of using Reins. So let's start with Chris. Do you want to give a brief introduction of your organization?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Crystal. Thanks for having me, and good to see you, Paul. Yeah, so a little bit about Reins. I guess, what we do effectively is help owners build a business that grows without them. So what do I mean by that? We give owners tools like alternative equity, phantom stock, profit sharing, and even performance bonuses that allow them to retain and align their key employees with the goals of their business. A lot of my customers, their goals are to grow, their goals are to exit one day in the future. It doesn't have to be imminent. Or they just don't want to be the sole operator of that business anymore. So they need to take a step back. They need to incentivize their employees to take the reins and make sure that they're operating and acting like owners in the business. So it's a little bit about what we do.
Beautiful. All right. So, Chris, we're going to get started with some questions for you. So the first one being, can you please discuss the various options that Reins provides and why each option is valuable?
Yeah, for sure. So we work with what we call alternative equity. It's a class of incentives that are designed for the independent business owner. There's really two sort of plain English reasons why an owner like Paul would use alternative equity instead of traditional equity. There's no tax event for the employee when it's granted. So you actually get a tax deferral, which is really important. And it doesn't create an owner. So you're sharing upside without diluting your own ownership and all the headaches that come with that. So underneath alternative equity, you've got long-term, mid-term, and short-term incentives. So think of it like equity, profit sharing, and bonuses. And the reason why there's different options is because they kind of have different purposes. So long-term incentives typically are going to pay when you sell the business, and that's going to incentivize employees to stick around, grow the enterprise value, right, and act like owners. Profit sharing is more midterm. It's usually quarterly or annual, and that's designed to usually uplift high-level company goals, whether it's simply profitability, revenue. Obviously, that is a input into growing the enterprise value of the business is going to make your equity worth more. And then not everyone can directly control profitability or gross margin or even revenue. So that's where bonuses can come in. As long as they're performance-based and quantitative, this is going to track the individual input of an employee and their contribution into profitability that ultimately, again, rolls up into enterprise value. So these are the different options that we support with our platform and gives owners the correct cocktail of how to incentivize and retain those employees.
All right, great. So now let's talk ROI. Can you please explain the ROI that can be achieved by using someone like Reins or another similar platform?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of owners don't realize how costly it is to lose a key employee, first and foremost. So Gallup actually did a study. It costs over 200% of any given employee's salary if you lose them. So just, let that sink in for a second. Extremely costly when those key employees walk out the door. So what we've seen is kind of three key levers. Across the board, 93% of all employees who have been granted an incentive through Reins are still employed with those same companies. That's crazy if you think about the average turnover in the trades being roughly 50 to 70%, depending on the trade. And then what we do is we actually help value the business for the purpose of the incentive plan. So we're tracking valuation. We're seeing an average of 16% lift in company valuation 12 to 24 months after implementing an alternative equity plan. And so what we've seen across the industry is businesses like Paul's that use alternative equity incentives like phantom stock or profit sharing they get an average EBITDA lift of anywhere from that 16 to 20%. And results directly to your exit value because everyone knows effectively, multiples of EBITDA here.
Perfect. And we know how important it is to retain employees. You put so much time, energy, and
Right.
effort into building a strong team. So this is a great aspect of using something like Reins. Let's talk do it yourself situations. There's DIY everywhere. Can you please explain why equity sharing is not a DIY situation and the implications that can happen if you try to do this on your own?
Yeah. So let me first, say with humility, you don't have to use Reins, but please don't try and vibe code your equity plan. It's like everyone saying that they can rewrite Service Titan with ChatGPT, right? It's just not going to happen. It's a source of record. So first and foremost, compliance, right? What happens if there's a dispute? When you use something like Reins, everything is signed and stored electronically within our platform with an audit trail, so we can defend the original agreements that were signed. We also help track the liability of those incentives. So there's a compliance element to it, but I think where it really the rubber meets the road is on plan design. So a lot of people don't realize, like folks that have heard about phantom stock, a lot of people have misconceptions about it. Oh, it's just a bonus. It's the fanciest bonus that could ever exist. And it's actually governed by a corner of the tax code called 409A. That's not important. The important part is if you get it wrong, you are in violation of 409A, and there are severe consequences for doing so. So using not only a platform, but a service that can be consultative, roll up their sleeves, and help you design a plan in a compliant way that meets the goals of your business as well as the goals of the IRS. That should be your focus above all.
Thank you so much, Chris. And on to our star guest, Paul Weiss, Door Serve Pro. It's so good to see you and work with you again. So, Paul, I'd love for you to explain kind of some background about the successes that have gotten you to where you are with Door Serve Pro and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I joined Garage Door Freedom 4 years ago, founding member. I think I was number 2 or 3 with Cody Johnson. We had a really tight group, grew the businesses, all of us. I think I grew 100% a year for 3 years in a row. Started to slow down a little bit last year. And then the best thing I learned was better practices, right? In order to grow a business properly and what was needed. And learning all that stuff, putting it all together, implementing it, and then seeing what comes out the other side. Has been pretty interesting. We've done pretty good. We have now partnered with a company we're all familiar with Guild, and I kind of graduated from Garage Door Freedom, and now kind of back trying to help other owners make some decisions that are pretty tough in our businesses. And I think that this that we're talking about today is a very good one. So,
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. All right, Chris, I'd like for you to take over the interview and you and Paul can kick it off.
Yeah, so Paul, you and I met a couple years now at Pantheon just by happenstance, and we've become fast friends. And you've leveraged Reins. And when we met you, you were like, kind of where have you been all my life? I've been thinking about this for a while. So what separates you from the other owners, or when did you actually decide to set up a plan like this prior to Reins, but you felt like you couldn't do it? Like when was like, I want to do this, and why did you want to set up an incentive plan like this?
yeah, for sure. It definitely came from the group. So, learning that it was, I think the most important thing I learned in the group doesn't really have to do with Reins, but it has to do with what we're talking about, which
Yeah.
is I learned that the less I made it about me and the more I made it about my staff and my customer, the better growth I was going to have. So, in that, Tommy Mello was a very good mentor of ours, an example of doing good business. And I still believe that to today. I'm the businessman and I'm the man that I am today because of him and the Garage Door Freedom. But what that led us to was how do you enrich all the people around you that help you build this. I call it on other people's backs. I could make all this money. I would feel guilty if I made all this kind of money on exits and I didn't share it with the people who got me there. So in discussing this with Tommy and in the group, and then with other owners, it's very expensive, lawyers and lawyering to have this right, as you hit on earlier, IRS and the 409, the 409A. Um, Tommy, and I don't want to throw him under the bus here, but like 300K
Yeah.
in order to get this set up together. And yours was 1%. And I don't want to give pricing away, but on my end, it was about 1% of that. So for me, that was what enticed me. I love going to Pantheon because meeting guys in new tech and very smart people like yourself, just trying to break into it. And that's how I met you. And I've tried to push you onto people and promote this. I think that it's a little confusing to a lot of people, but the real simple thing here is this is the cleanest way to give a portion of your company to the people who help you get there. It also helps, as Chris hit on earlier, it automatically raises your numbers because you have your employees, your staff. We don't call them employees anymore. They're our staff or our teammates. They're now bought in with you. What makes this different than most is the buy-in is legitimate. It comes with true paperwork, IRS filings, and different things like this. It's set up. They have logins. They can see how it grows or doesn't grow. They can see impacts and different things like this. I think that was the biggest selling point for me. The transparency is what we're going for. And this was allowed, this was a system that allowed me to set up pretty easily for a minimal cost to be able to split this and show them that I'm serious about what we're doing. And here is my part to you. Hope that
Yeah.
answered.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned like 1% of the 300,000 that Tommy Mello famously mentioned. I've seen it. I've seen him on a podcast say that. And so folks might be wondering like how we're able to do that. And so just to clear the air, we use technology. It's not an analog service like it historically was. So we've partnered with the best attorneys in the country to create a framework, but it's all integrated into our software. We even use things like AI to build the plans and value the companies so that, like Paul said, on their fingertips, the employees have what their equity is worth. It's all the legal contracts and paperwork, so it's all legit. I guess, Paul, for those who are a little less familiar, maybe they've heard about phantom equity once or twice, or maybe they haven't at all. Did you understand the difference between traditional equity and phantom, and what made you choose the phantom route?
Yeah, so if I'm being truthful,
Yeah,
before I joined Garage Door Freedom, no, I did not.
yeah,
Did I ever think about giving a portion of my company away? Yes. Did I ever think I was really going to do it? If I'm being honest, no. Um, it made me look at the group made me look at things differently, but it also educated me in a lot of different ways. And learning that the real thought problem is when you give away real equity, it can really affect your company and your outcome of your company. In a year, maybe you don't get along with this person and they have a percentage in your company and it's real equity. You may not ever be able to get rid of them.
yeah, yeah,
So they could stalemate you in a lot of different things. The phantom equity and or ghost equity that is sometimes called is a very easy way to, I think, build a system for people that understand it's the same equity practices. Everything looks the same. Everything feels the same. It just lets you have exits. And it really, to me, it puts skin in the game for both parties, meaning that I can pull this from you if you don't do what you're signing on to do, and or I can increase it here pretty easily on my side. So I think the point of it is that real equity, or true equity it's called, would could affect you tremendously in your business and your structure and loans and a lot of different things
yeah.
when you go to sell and a lot of different things. So this keeps it super clean. You retain 100% ownership until an event, a funding event, a sale, or something like this. And then that portion, say that you want to give, I give 25% away. If you want to give 25% away of your company, that's all divided up for you. And you just cut the checks and everything is done. So
Yep,
that's kind
yep.
of how we did it.
That's awesome. And how did the employees feel? I know you said you partnered with Guild. How did they feel before when you introduced the program, and how did they feel after?
I think what was cool, one, as Chris had mentioned in the beginning, we became friends. We talk a lot. I love him and what he's doing, and I think that it's just a cool thing for the trades. So I was afforded the opportunity to have him come in and introduce it to my staff, and we gave awards that day. So it was a pretty cool event for them to get some kind of tangibility of this, be able to be taught how to log in and see what their value was today. Talk about how that can grow, how that can shrink, the goods and the bads, and it was very easy for them to understand. We had several guys. I don't deal with the day to day as much as I used to, but my manager Adam does. And when he's the field manager, and when he does, they would come to him about this and different things, concerned about when we're going to sell, how we're going to sell, all these kind of things that I don't think they ever looked at before. So it was pretty neat, in my opinion, for them to be able to see. I think they like the transparency. Anybody, I think where we really fuck up as owners is we go in and we say we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Unfortunately, we get so busy that most of the time we don't do what we say we're going to do, and that just kind of knocks down everything. So next time I come to you and I say, "Hey, I'm going to pay this spiff for this," and I don't pay it, or they don't believe that I'm going to pay it, they're just not going to do it. So there's a part of the buy-in here that happens that makes it, in my opinion, makes it tangible, even more so, I think, than that $300,000 lawyer where I give you a piece of paper.
Yeah.
This is something where you can log in and you can see numbers today, what your value is worth. And maybe it's something that you're deciding, I don't really want to do this anymore, or whatever the case might be. And you can actually find out what your exit may be from the trade or whatever the case might be as well. So I think it's it's good in a lot of ways. I think that as an owner, you need to look at the tangibility is the important part. People need to be able to feel it, see it, and know that it's real before they get bought in. And this is the only way, in my opinion, to buy them in. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I flew out a little after the partnership and talked to some of the employees. And I was even blown away at their sentiment of how much it changed it just for, as a fly in the wall in your business, like their sentiment of the overall opportunity and their relationship with you. And like, it was already great. I couldn't even fathom it being stronger. And I witnessed that firsthand, just talking to a couple of the guys. So I thought that was really cool. Guess maybe one last thing, Crystal, and pass it back to you is like, I know, Paul, you and I have talked about, the elephant in the room here is Reins has made this so easy. It really has, right? Like compared to the alternative. And sometimes it backs guys up into a corner. So maybe talk us through and maybe lessons owner to owner, whoever is listening on, look, now this is easy for those of you who've been thinking about it. Why do it versus get a little gun shy now that it's so easy to implement?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think the problem that there is with a program like this, that it does make it real. And I think that a lot of owners, I think we have good hearts and we have good intention. And I think when you talk dollars, um, things change. And I think
Right.
it becomes difficult for people. But I think there's a way to look at this and say how I did, which is, how do we get to where we're at? Who got us there? Um, do you really think that it's best for yourself to kind of take that check, walk away, and leave these people standing there with no jobs and all this stuff? I I'll answer for myself, no. And mine was a little selfish. A lot of people give me credit for being, oh, I'm a nice guy and I do this. I'm always very transparent, and the people that know me, especially on Garage Door Freedom, know that. Um, I did this a little selfish because I kind of knew that if I didn't do something like this, I would regret it. And likely, I used to be a heavy drinker. I would drink myself to death over the guilt of making all this money off of other people's backs. So for me, it made it tangible and it made it real. I could say it probably bought me in a little bit to say, okay, this is real and I'm really doing
Mhm.
this. And the feeling that comes from it, even writing the checks, I'll be honest, it's a little tough. I'm just going to be very clear here. It's a little tough. But when you're all done with it and you see the impact that you're going to be able to make in these people's lives, and the bigger you kept your word, it's the only fucking thing we have in life, integrity. The only thing I have is what I say. And if I keep telling you I'm going to take care of you, and then I get paid out and I don't take care of you, um, that's going to be detrimental to you later in life, I promise you. So I
Yeah.
look at it as I live with no regret. I did what I did, and I did it out of the gratefulness of my heart, my family's heart, and we feel really good about it. And I think going into the future, I have absolutely zero regrets of how I handled it. Probably looking at signing with Reins was probably one of the smarter things I did in my business because it brought them in as a whole. As you said, you saw my people. You were very fortunate. You saw my people before they signed,
Right.
before we had this, and then you came in and saw them afterwards. So
Right.
after a payout, um, some of them got to buy new cars. Some of them got to buy Harleys. Some of them got deposits on houses. All different kinds of things like this that would have never been possible without it. So those are the things I look at that as the wins rather than maybe an extra zero or two in my bank account. So for me, I'm very glad to do it. It was one of the better things I've done. So.
That's awesome. And let's, and there's the intrinsic value, like you just said, and then there's the merits of it too. It can increase exit value. You can ensure that, you're retaining those key employees, which is going to help your bottom line. And so, it's not just intrinsic value. There's all kinds of quantitative reasons to do it too, especially well before a sale. You were relatively close to the partnership,
Mhm.
but it's setting it up, well in advance can set your business up for success. So
Well, no,
I'll
I
pass it
think you
back to you,
nailed that.
Crystal.
Yeah, and I think you nailed. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I
No,
think you
no.
nailed that earlier too on the profit end of this. The part that I didn't really use because I was so close to the impactful sale. This was more of a kind of get this zip together pretty quickly so that we didn't miss the window.
Yeah.
We'll look at the next part as I go through these. I still have a couple more turns to go. My employees get 25% of all my companies, so we'll continue to use Reins and continue to grow with it. I think it becomes a super, super important tool in what we're trying to do in these modernized businesses.
Yeah.
And I think the more that we can do to help our staffs and to help them grow is what we're here for. So we're not only here to just grow businesses, we're here to grow people.
That's right.
Well, Paul, I love this for you and your team, and thank you for the vulnerability and sharing and being honest. You're one of the most honest people I know. And I know you do your research before you make any decision, and you're very honest about, what you find. So ultimately, what made you choose Rain?
So the weird part about Reigns is there's not a whole lot of competition for him out there. I think he's sewed up a niche here that leaves um, there's no kind of guessing there. It's super clean. I think in one meeting you would be able to get a real good understanding of what Chris does and why. I think the other part, I didn't have to worry about anything. He did everything. All I did was give him a bunch of names, and I don't even think we gave them to him. I think we just filled in a list of names, and then everything else was done for us. So him and Jenna have always been there to walk through no matter what we've had, any questions. When it came close to payout, I actually asked if he could do me a sheet that just printed out for my accountant to do the checks. They did that for me. It made everything super easy for me. So I think to answer your question, not a lot of competition for him, but you got to understand what you're buying and the money that you're saving. If it's 1% of what Tommy paid, that tells you right there the value in what he's doing is right there. It's just, do you have the guts to put mouth into action? What you say on the paper, and I think that's the question. And to me, that comes down to owner's integrity.
Well, this has been awesome. I appreciate you both for being on here. And Chris, if you want to visit him, he'll be at Vertical Track coming up in May in Scottsdale, Arizona, the 13th through the 15th. So make sure to visit his booth, ask lots of questions. And if folks want to get a hold of you now, Chris, what is the best way to contact you?
Yeah. Well, you can reach out to me directly. It's chris@myreins.com. I also got my number here in the top right-hand corner, I think. But if you go to our website, myreins.com, we also wrote a book called Alternative Equity. So it's a completely non-promotional free guide on how these incentives work and how you can set them up, again, unbeknownst to Reins. So feel free to grab a free copy. We give them out as many as we can. So you can find the book on the site, and that'd be a great way to get started as well.
Perfect. Well, appreciate you. And as always, if you want a direct introduction, you can always go through any one of our Garage Door Freedom teammates and we'll connect you with Chris. So again, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Chris. This was great and hope to see you guys soon.
Thank you,
Yes,
Crystal.
ma'am.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.